Hello and welcome to Travel Beans. I'm Alex, this is Emma, and we are full-time travellers and digital nomads currently staying in Istanbul.
If you're thinking of coming to Istanbul either for a short holiday or longer term, we've got you covered.
We are leaving Istanbul very soon. It's over. Get over it, because we already have.
So we thought now would be the perfect opportunity to share with you all of the knowledge we have accumulated here about the cost of living and life as a digital nomad. We have found Istanbul to be a very affordable place to live.
We have stayed in a number of cities around the world, but they're not always budget friendly. For example, Tokyo, we absolutely love Tokyo, one of our favourite places, but the whole time we're looking at our wallet. We can only ever afford maybe one geisha every time we visit.
Do you even know what a geisha is or what a geisha does?
So those are sex women, aren't they?
No, that's a prostitute, Alex. A geisha, they do like tea ceremonies and stuff, don't they?
One second, I just need to know. Do geishas
do sex?
Sex?
Oh my god. This is probably so disrespectful.
Entertainer. Some prostitutes refer themselves as geisha.
But they are not. There you go.
That says a lot about us. But what we find about Istanbul is that we are able to enjoy the city to its fullest.
So we are going to break down the cost of living here in Istanbul into a few different points. And our first one is accommodation. Obviously, there are a lot of variables when it comes to choosing accommodation, depending on how comfortable or uncomfortable you want to be. Istanbul is split into two sides. On either side of the Bosphorus, you have the European side and you have the Asian side. From our experience, it seems to be much cheaper to stay on the Asian side. For that reason, we would choose to stay on this side always.
For example, we are paying just over £100 a week for staying here for about just under 7 weeks. It's easier to have a much cheaper accommodation, but we have specific requirements because we're teachers online, so we need separate rooms and we need really fast Wi-Fi.
Just looking at listings on Airbnb, it seems you can pay as little as £220 for an entire month here in Istanbul.
And that's in your own private place as well.
We use Airbnb because we find it the most convenient. However, I'm sure that local agencies would be even cheaper.
Like most cities, the cheapest way to get around is public transport. And when you get to Istanbul, the first thing you're going to want to do is get yourself an Istanbul card.
An Istanbul card is essentially a travel card, a bit like an Oyster for those of you in London, where you load up a bunch of money and you can just use that card to pay for the different transport options around the city.
You get a flat fee of 2 liras 60 for every mode of transport, so that includes the buses, the metro and the ferry, which is definitely our favourite way to get around.
And that is a discount compared to buying individual tickets. If you want an individual fare, you're going to be paying roughly 5 lira per ticket. Also, if you're needing to transfer onto a different mode of transport within a certain time frame, it's even cheaper than that.
The more expensive option is of course the taxis, but we are extremely lazy and we've been taking them everywhere. And considering that Istanbul has the second worst traffic in the world, it's actually not been that bad at all, especially for short trips.
The price does seem pretty reasonable to us. It starts at 4 lira on the meter and a 15-minute journey usually costs about 15 lira. You may have heard that taxi drivers here, like in a lot of cities around the world, like to trick people out of their money a little bit. So we would recommend to download an app called B Taxi. With this app, it's a little bit like Uber, but actually you're using taxis. So the meter is running like in a normal taxi. However, you have the map on the screen on the phone with an estimated fare on there for you. You also have the option of paying on card, so you don't have to have cash.
Unfortunately, food here in Istanbul and Turkey in general is gonna be the death of us. One of the main reasons I'm looking forward to leaving is it is so tasty.
Most delicious food ever. You're almost guaranteed to gain weight here unless you're doing some serious exercise to counteract it.
You can eat on any budget here, and of course if you shop at the local markets it's going to be the cheapest option, but eating out is very affordable.
And also guys, I do recommend for fresh fruit and veg, go to the local markets instead of the supermarkets. The quality is unreal.
Your first option for eating out is cheap street food, and it is everywhere. You've got burgers, you've got wraps, kokoreç, kebabs are just a few of the things you can get here. These can be hit or miss, but when they're good, oh guys, that noise means it's really good. And this is going to set you back between about 5 and 15 lira each time.
Next is the mid-range restaurants. So you can expect to pay between about 15 to 40 lira for a really good quality sit-down meal.
For example, the best kebab of my life, oh god, it kills me I haven't had this again, was less than 30 lira.
Another restaurant called Chia Sofrasi was featured on Chef's Table on Netflix, which means that it's probably overpriced compared to other places of the same quality. However, we had an absolute feast there for about 100 lira. Another great food that is fantastic value for money here in Istanbul is the breakfast. The Turkish breakfast is phenomenal. It is my favorite breakfast in all of the lands of the world that I've traveled to. So you can get a full-on Turkish breakfast for about 50 lira for 2 people. And then if you're feeling a bit fancy, you want to splash your cash, Istanbul's got places for you too, guys, don't worry.
You get great value for money, especially if your parents are paying for it. We ate a ridiculously nice meze and fish dinner with wine with an incredible view of the Bosphorus, and it averaged out at about 260 lira per person. Now, of course, you can't do this every night. Well, maybe you can, you rich bastard. But if you do splash out, you're going to get more for your money than you would in other countries.
All in all, Istanbul is a foodie's paradise. No matter what your budget, you can spend so much or so little, and whatever you get, you know it's going to be good.
The biggest compliment we can pay to the Turkish food is that we have basically only eaten Turkish food the whole time we've been here.
That never happens.
Never, including cooking it at home. Usually within a week we're reverting back to some home comforts, but this time, just never.
Turkey's got you covered on drinks too. It is the biggest consumer of tea per capita in the world, so you can easily find it everywhere. And a cup of the good stuff is going to cost you about 1 lira 50 upwards, and a cup of coffee starting at around 3 lira. Fresh lemonade is also a favourite of ours here in Istanbul, which you can find everywhere. If you buy it on the street, we've seen it as low as about 8 lira for a cup, very small cup. Or if you buy it in the cafes, it'll probably be around 15 lira.
And if you like to tickle your tonsils with some alcoholic beverages, then you will definitely find it here. You might get some criticism in the comments of being alcoholics if you like a beer every now and again. But as long as you're not filming it, you're fine. The price of alcohol is not that dissimilar to the UK because they have very high taxes here for it. But a beer from a convenience store will cost you about 12 lira, and a bottle of good local wine will start from about 40 lira.
In the restaurants, you'd probably expect to pay around 22 to 25 for a beer, and maybe a bottle of wine would be starting at around 120 lira. But of course, that all depends on the place that you're buying it from. Next up, we have entertainment. There is no shortage of things to do here in Istanbul. Entrance fees for the typical tourist sites range from being completely free up to about 80 lira.
Something we highly recommend on a budget is for 25 lira you can take a full-day Bosphorus cruise up towards the Black Sea.
We did this with Alex's parents when they came to visit us, and it is still one of the highlights of our trip so far.
Another thing we love to do on our travels is go to the cinema, and here it is about 30 lira for a ticket, and that is actually an expensive cinema. It can be a lot less, and I think we paid about 40 lira to go to the IMAX.
But our personal favourite things to do in Istanbul are actually completely free. We like to just wander around the neighbourhoods and soak in the city. Two of our favourite neighbourhoods that we highly recommend you guys to go and check out are Moda and Kuzgunguk.
In Kuzgunguk, the streets are extremely beautiful. It's an Instagram paradise, and if you decide to make a cringy music video, it's the perfect place for you.
Next up is safety.
We get asked this question a lot. People always ask, is Turkey safe? Categorically, it's extremely safe, and actually when you come here, you would be surprised that people even ask this question.
Like any city, you have to take precautions so that you don't get pickpocketed in the busy areas and you don't get scammed. But other than that, we have felt extremely safe walking around at night. We have had absolutely no issues here whatsoever. Lastly, we just want to talk about Istanbul from the point of view of a digital nomad or someone who's planning to stay here longer term.
As a base, Istanbul is got to be one of the best locations in the world. You have Europe, Asia and Africa basically on your doorstep, and for less than £100 you can fly to so many countries.
Also, the flights around Turkey itself are pretty cheap. If you have a look on Skyscanner, you can see flights to every corner of Turkey for less than about £60. One thing that might be worth noting, especially for the digital nomads out there, is the cost of electronics in Turkey. I know that Alex and I sometimes, when we stop somewhere for a period of time, that's when we look into replacing some of our electronics that have had a bit of wear and tear. This is not the place to do that. Due to taxes, a lot of electronics are a little bit more expensive here than in other places like London.
For example, in England we can get a GoPro 7 for £329. Here it costs about £450 to buy the same device.
There are also an abundance of cafes and workspaces around Istanbul, many of which offer free Wi-Fi, which are the perfect places to get your work on.
Also in the apartments you can get very good Wi-Fi speeds, which should be good enough for any kind of video conferencing, just accessing emails or teaching like we do. Also on a side note, data is not so expensive here and getting a local SIM card is a great option. The most convenient way to do this is getting one at the airport, but it's about double the price of what you'd pay at a local store for the same SIM card.
However, the process of getting one is fairly straightforward and definitely good as a backup option. We feel that Istanbul is the ideal place for digital nomads to stay because of the geography, the cost of living, and just the lifestyle that you can actually have here. All of those things put together makes it one of our top choices for digital nomads. Lastly, we would like to give a huge shout out to the sponsors of today's video, SafetyWing. SafetyWing is a travel medical insurance company aimed specifically at nomads. Some of the reasons we love these guys is because, firstly, the flexibility. You know how much we value flexibility in our lives, and they offer a fully flexible plan, a bit like Netflix, that you can cancel at any time.
A huge plus for us is that you can buy this when you're abroad. It can be super annoying trying to sort out insurance once you've left your home country, and with SafetyWing we don't actually have to worry about that.
It's also really great value for money at just $37 for 4 weeks worldwide cover, excluding the US. They also cover trips to the US as well for an extra cost. Another interesting thing to note about SafetyWing is that visits home are also covered. So if you want to head home for Christmas, don't worry about it. For every 90 days that you're out of the country, you will be covered for 30 days back in your home country. Unless you're from the US, in which case 15 days are covered.
So if you are interested in flexible nomad insurance, check out the link in the description and please consider using our affiliate link. Although it won't cost anything extra for you, it will help us out.
We hope you found this video useful. If you have any extra tips yourself, or maybe any resources that you think will be helpful for budget travel or for digital nomads, leave it in the comments down below.
Also, if you're interested in learning about our Earn Less, Live More philosophy, join us on Facebook, and if you have a spare bit of change that you don't want because it's so stinky and gross, then give it to us on our Patreon. And lastly, if you enjoyed the video, come on, you know what to do by now.
Give us all the thumbs up, please.
Also press subscribe. There's a little notification bell. That's just quite a lot of things to do. Do them all.
Too many things to remember.
Do them all. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time, and beads out!